If I were to describe Alan Wake to someone who has never played the game, I would pretty much say it's like if Stephen King and the writers of Twin Peaks, probably David Lynch, wrote a classic Twilight Zone episode together. It's a horror story with a well-crafted mystery, which to me at least is kinda rare to find. I'm not the biggest horror fan, in fact I kinda dislike the genre in general. However, I like spooky stuff, and given that this is a Halloween special, I like the spooky atmosphere the holiday emits. I would be more of a fan of horror if horror games and movies focused a bit more on the mystery of the spooky stuff, rather than, relying too much on gore and shock value, which to me actually grosses me out. Luckily, Alan Wake isn't really a gore, cheap, jump scare type of horror. I mean, it has its jump scares, but it's really the mystery of the world that really got me hooked on this game. And I'm excited to talk about this game because it's actually one of my favorites. Although, please note that I am not reviewing the remaster, which I believe just came out. I'm going to be discussing the PC version via GOG. I thought about reviewing the remaster, but honestly, when it comes to graphical updates, I kinda don't see the purpose to rebuy something I already own. Unless I had the game on like another console and I just don't want to break it out. I know there's some obvious graphical difference, but I kinda find outdated graphics to have a bit of a charm to them. Plus, they got rid of the product placements, which I know isn't something people like, but I love product placements in games because it gives me something to make fun of later on. I've never been one of those people who needs to stay 100% in the fantasy world, so a little Verizon Wireless commercial for me in-game isn't gonna deter me from the actual game. Plus again, I can make fun of this later on. Why would a game advertise to me to buy a phone? Or even batteries for that matter? Was Verizon Wireless worried that they weren't reaching the gamer kids during this time? I don't know. It's baffling to me why this is in the game, which is why we need to keep it in. It adds to the overall mystery. As always, this video will contain major spoilers for the Alan Wake story. However, because I'm the type of person who kinda hates spoilers, I'm going to try my hardest not to reveal everything moment by moment, but be warned, if you do not want something spoiled for you, then maybe it's best to just skip this episode. Now that that's out of the way, let's pour ourselves a damn fine cup of coffee and begin. The story of Alan Wake isn't super complicated, however I do have a hard time articulating it. The story just has a lot of layers to unpack, so let me try to simplify it the best way I can. The game opens up with a dream, or technically a premonition. Alan Wake is an acclaimed writer, and he's having a nightmare about him being hunted down by a character from one of his stories. In a way, the beginning of the game is kind of foreshadowing the entire plot, which is actually something that happens often in this game. I personally love foreshadowing being used as a narrative trope. I feel like foreshadowing just kind of rewards you for paying attention. The nightmare section acts as sort of a tutorial to get a feel of the gameplay. So if playing this or seeing this is kind of turning you off, then that's pretty much it for the game. I would note that gameplay may not be the biggest strong suit Alan Wake has. I personally enjoyed stunning my enemies with a flashlight because it makes the combat feel very unique. But anyway, I'll get back to gameplay in a moment. Let's get back to the story. Alan awakes on a ferry boat heading towards the town of Bright Falls, Washington. His wife Alice accompanies him on the vacation. She knew Alan was going through a bit of a writer slump with his writing, so she thought maybe some time in Washington would be beneficial for his writing. Of course, she doesn't tell him why they're actually going on vacation. She's just all like, hey, let's go on vacation. The couple stays in a cabin on an island that rests on top of Cauldron Lake. Cauldron Lake is a very eerie and mysterious lake, which has a lot of lore to it. Of course, her and Alan get into an argument because she finally reveals to him an office in which she thought he could do some writing in while looking out on the lake. Being the jerk Alan is, he flips out. I mean, I get he's stressed and I know he's going through a bit of writer's block, but she's just trying to help, man. Of course, Alan doesn't see that. All he sees is her trying to pressure him into write his next big novel, which is frustrating when he's got no juices in his brain to do so. So, like the hothead he is, he storms out. After going outside and taking a chill pill, he hears her scream. And of course, he comes to her aid only to find that she has fallen into the lake and he dives in to save her. Alan then awakes only to find himself inside a crashed car. After awakening, Alan ventures into the woods to find help. He is then attacked by the supernatural horrors of the game and makes a fast dash out of the woods. After making it out alive, he finds a phone in a gas station and calls the authorities. Alan doesn't tell the cops about what happened in the woods, but he does tell the cops about his wife Alice being missing and that they were staying at a cabin out on Cauldron Lake.
My wife Alice, she's missing.
Calm down, Mr. Wade.
We were staying in a cabin on the island, on Cauldron Lake.
There's no island on Cauldron Lake, not since the big eruption in the 70s.
Please, I can take you there, okay?
You look like you've taken a pretty bad knock to the head. Are you okay?
Listen.
We'll figure this out. Please get in the car. We'll swing by the lake and then we'll go to the station, okay? Mr. Wake, have you seen Stucky, the guy who owns this place?
Confused, Alan goes on a quest to find out what happened to his wife, and he ends up uncovering the supernatural mysteries of the lake. And that's pretty much where the game's story kicks off. Alan later discovers that all the events that he's witnessing and experience are happening because he wrote them to happen. How would he have done that, you ask? Well, the lake he stayed on has the power to bring writers' stories to life, and the lake itself is a prison to a powerful entity known as the Darkness. You see, before Alan got into the car crash, he was isolated inside of the cabin that was underwater for a week. That was because the Darkness had kidnapped Alice and forced Alan to write a way for the Darkness to get out of the lake so it could spread its dark powers across the world. You know, basic bad guy plot. That's kind of what the story revolves around, though. It's the idea that Alan's story is coming back to bite him in the ass, kind of like what his nightmare had predicted. Alan being the writer means everything we see and experience all follow his story word to word, except when you die, I guess. Even the Darkness is bound to follow the script. In order to actually defeat the Darkness and save Alice, Alan has to finish the ending of the story by writing it. So naturally, the Darkness does all it can within the limits of its powers and within the limits of the story to stop him. There's also another writer to this story, and it's not Darkness. I've had stories impress me before, but Alan Wake's story really made me go, what? I'm really hesitant as to whether I should just spoil these game stories for you guys. What do you guys think about game reviewers that spoil too much? Let me know in the comments. Maybe I can form my next script around some feedback. Jumping back to the story, the second writer of the story really does add a sort of deeper layer to the story that just blew me away. Again, I really want to tell you, but at the same time, I don't want to spoil it. I just want you to play the game. So play the game. I don't think I've really played a shooter game like Alan Wake. I mean, yes, it's kind of your run-of-the-mill third-person shooter, but you see, you can't really just retire enemies with a few rounds to the chest. You actually have to stun them with light until they become shootable. Once they're shootable, you can light them up. Bang, 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 bang. Oh, hold on a sec. Gotta reload here. Hold on. Oh, and you're down. Next, please. He uses a variety of light-emitting tools to defeat enemies known as the Take-Ins. Take-Ins are pretty much normal people who have been possessed by the Darkness's power, or corrupted, or whatever you want to call it. I guess they're not really normal people anymore. I mean, they're technically dead-ish. I mean, they're dead after I retired them, so. I have to say, I really wish more games would utilize the flashlight mechanics. It's something I feel I don't see often in games, and it's probably due to technical issues like trying to incorporate realistic lighting, but I don't know, I really like flashlights in games. I mean, in Alan Wake, they're not just used for combat, but they also can be used to open possessed gates and solve puzzles, or even find hidden markings around levels that lead to some hidden caches. What really keeps you on your toes besides the unsettling trek through the woods is that these flashlights, like guns, need ammo, or technically batteries, which are sponsored by Energizer. Energizer, the #1 battery brand that keeps you drumming, and your flashlight will be draining and you will have to constantly reload. Otherwise, you know, you're gonna die. I don't know how everyone feels about the flashlight combat, but I generally like the idea. However, sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, especially when the game swarms you with these enemies. I can't tell whether I hate the guys that throw stuff at you or these little speedy a-holes. Okay, it's pretty much the speedy a-holes. Screw these guys. Actually, you know what? These enemies are the worst. I can't believe I'm saying this, but screw flying inanimate objects, seriously. I think what's really enduring about Alan Wake's character, though, is that he's facing off against a lot of scary stuff, and he's not even trained to do so. In most shooter games, you're usually some kind of highly trained military guy or like a wacky gangster guy or somebody tough. I mean, Alan isn't. He's a writer from New York that wears a tweed jacket and a hoodie. That's not tough. I know what you're thinking, but he's from New York. No, he's a writer though. When's the last time a writer was tough? This guy hasn't even fired a gun outside of a shooting range.
My head pounded with a concussion. I'd never fired a gun outside a shooting range.
I literally just said that, Alan. So, shut up. This is my show, not yours. I feel like more games, though, need the untrained protagonist. I mean, I've never fired a gun once, so it's kind of relatable. But having an untrained protagonist go through a horrible adventure kind of also really adds that anxiety that the developers were trying to provoke. I mean, if I was playing Batman through this game, I probably wouldn't have felt too anxious when playing, but Alan is not Batman. I mean, he's just like you and I, a very vulnerable person. I mean, even when Batman's vulnerable and doesn't have his utility belt, he's still a martial artist, so he doesn't really need equipment to kick ass. Although there is some moments in the game where I just kept thinking, there's no way a normal person could do that. Especially this scene when he's like dodging bullets. But when the story kind of explains that Alan is the writer of these events, it all kind of started making sense on how Alan was able to conveniently get through these tough situations. I guess you could say plot armor is Alan's main weapon of choice for this game. The navigation through levels is very linear, as your main objective is to pretty much just go forward through the woods. Exploring is really well rewarding though. Like I mentioned, the flashlights reveal directions to these hidden caches, but you can also collect things like thermoses from the Oh Dear Diner. Not only can you collect thermoses, but you can also stumble upon these television sets, which play these cheesy live action segments of a show called Night Springs, which is a clear reference to the classic Twilight Zone. You can also find these manuscripts around each level that give you more backstories on the events and sometimes can even tell you what's going to happen in the future. I was originally going to note in this video that you don't actually have to collect these manuscripts if you don't want to. However, as I was playing more of the game, I kind of found myself realizing that the manuscripts add a lot more value to better understand what's really going on. So if you're playing this, I would recommend collecting the manuscripts. That means you're going to have to go off the path a bit into the dark forest. So be brave. And speaking of the forest, the Washington setting is probably what I really love about this game. If you ever lived or camped in a Washington forest, you probably are familiar with how creepy it can get here at night. This really does make you feel like you're in a real Pacific Northwest forest, so it's pretty impressive they were able to translate that into a video game. I know Cauldron Lake is like a place where darkness resides, but honestly, I would kayak or canoe on this lake. It is really magnificent to look at. Although knowing my luck, I probably would get dragged to the bottom by darkness, because darkness is kind of a dick. I really enjoy that this game's main focus is trekking through the woods. I mean, we've had RPGs like Zelda or even Oblivion that allowed you to travel in the woods, but it was never the main setting for the game. What I'm trying to say is that it's just a nice breath of fresh air to step in an atmosphere that isn't the usual city setting or even barren wasteland. I do like to note that the game does do a good job shaking up the setting. I mean, although I went on a huge rant about how I love the woods, the game isn't always in the forest. Some levels allow you to traverse around the town of Bright Falls, power plants, and even the highway. I kind of wish this game was just a bit open world. I only say that because I probably would spend a good day or two in real time just looking around the town and seeing how close to an actual Washington town it seems. That, and I would constantly be looking for Twin Peaks references because I love Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is one of my all-time favorite shows, so the game really does some good fan service to the TV classic. Now, let's talk about Alan Wake's character for a bit, because he's not the most memorable character. I mean, I wouldn't put him on like a top 10 list of best video game characters, but he's a noteworthy protagonist. By noteworthy, I mean he's kind of a dick. Alan might not be the most likable guy for some. Me personally, I kind of found him a bit unnecessarily standoffish, especially in the beginning when he flipped out on Alice for just trying to help him get in the writing mood. However, I'm glad the developers made Alan a bit of a jerk. You know why? Because it allows room for character development. Characters need flaws, they need something to be wrong about, and they need to sometimes be unlikable. If the story is good, the character will learn from these flaws. Plus, I just find it uninteresting when a character is like 100% perfect and are always in the right about everything. Alan has flaws. He snaps at his wife, he parties all the time without considering how others might feel, and he even has been in trouble for popping a paparazzi in the face. He even kind of thinks little of his fans and is very standoffish with people. I mean, I get being standoffish with people who are obsessed with you, but Rose here is just starstruck and she's innocent. Although she does drug Alan's coffee, but to be fair, she was possessed by the darkness. Then again, that shrine of Alan in her room is a bit creepy. But I'm sure normal people have like shrines of celebrities, right? Right? Oh, wait. She's like, what, 18 or something young? So that's normal for kids, I think. Now, I'm not saying his behavior is okay. In fact, I'm saying the opposite of that. But what makes Alan a compelling character is when he loses Alice, the one person in his life that just wants what's best for him. The one person who really kind of sees Alan for what he is and not what he makes. She's his muse. And after the darkness takes her, he loses that. This is the story of a man trying to desperately hold on to the person that made him feel sane. She was his sanity, and he's trying to get that back. We as a player get to experience his downfall, and we learn along with him. My point being is that flaws should be encouraged when writing a character. It really makes the protagonist's journey more compelling when they learn from those flaws. Anyone else notice that weird piano noise that keeps playing? Anyway, as we wrap up another episode of Loot and Junk Media, I just want to say thank you, and I wish you a happy weird pumpkin face day. Or as I call it, Halloween trademark. I'm not sure how Halloween-y this episode really was, but I hope it brought some Halloween joy to your day, or just some joy in general. It'd be weird, but if it brought Christmas spirit to you, that's totally fine with me. I'll take it. I'm planning on doing some more holiday theme episodes down the line, so look out for those. As always though, thank you for watching, and seriously, have a safe, weird pumpkin face day.